Hello. You are currently watching a video with voiceover translated into English. I apologize if some words do not convey the meaning quite accurately. So, you have a problem with your faucet. The hot and cold water supply is no longer adjustable. It immediately became clear that the cartridge inside the faucet body needs to be replaced. And I immediately checked the flexible water supply hose, telling her that your hoses are good soft, like new. That is, they do not need to be changed, but only the cartridge needs to be replaced. The owner also asked to look at the hoses under the wash basin in the bathroom. If these hoses turned out to be hard, I would replace them. I told her that they do not need to be changed. They are in perfect condition. I examined the water supply hose to the toilet system. It also turned out to be soft. And this is what a very old hose looks like. It has lost its elasticity and it has frozen in a certain bend. So let's begin. The first thing I do is turn off the water supply taps to the apartment, both cold and hot. Then cover the drain hole in the sink so that small objects do not fall into it. Now I use a flat screwdriver or knife to pry up and remove the decorative plastic cap at the mixer handle. Inside there is a locking screw holding the handle on the cartridge rod. I unscrew it with a 2.5mm internal Allen key. After unscrewing the locking screw you need to. Removing the mixer handle from the cartridge stem is just one of the complex actions. I will explain and show you in more detail below. Here I will clearly show you on a separate faucet, including all the tricky procedures for replacing the cartridge, as well as what difficulties you will have to face when removing the decorative plastic plug. A screwdriver can jump off and hurt your fingers. Here, hold it by this place and pry it up. Just do not put your fingers here. Here it is, the plastic plug. 2 turns are enough, and it comes out. The handle has a bad property. It does not. It is always easy to remove. We hold this handle and hit here to remove the handle. I often have to knock on it with a hammer, but it happens that the handle still does not come off due to souring from exposure to moisture and dirt. Quite often I have to knock this handle down, knocking with a hammer, sticking to screwdriver on the sides. Of course, it would be better to use WD-40 lubricant. In 15 years of working as a plumber, I have never seen a professional plumber use this lubricant. WD-40 will only be needed if you want to repair the tap yourself, since you will not always be able to remove the lever with a hammer and a screwdriver. But if hitting with a hammer does not achieve the result of removing the handle, then you need to apply something heavier like a crowbar. Quite often I encountered this moment. The locking screw does not unscrew due to souring from moisture and dirt. The set screw is made for an internal hexagon with an external thread of 4.8mm in diameter and for such a hexagon of 2.5 mm. It also comes with a flat slot. I show the type of slot on the locking screw. The tip of the locking screw is pressed into the plastic rod of the cartridge. What to do when locking? The screw won't come off. We clamp the Allen key in the pliers and tap the pliers with a small hammer, but not too hard, moderately. The screw loosens from souring, after which it can be unscrewed. But if the screw can't be unscrewed, some in the video suggest cutting the handle off with a grinder. This is, of course, possible if the faucet is completely removed from the sink. But if the faucet body is not removed, then cutting it off with a grinder will not work. The burning sparks from the grinder will damage the kitchen furniture, wallpaper, etc. Then it is easier to drill out the locking screw if it is made of stainless steel first. I drill with a 2mm drill the locking screw, then with a 3.5mm drill. This is what the hole will look like after a 3.5mm drill. Then I also drill the cartridge rod with a 4mm drill. However, it doesn't work yet, so I apply additional force with a screwdriver and marking. It is important that when drilling the locking screw on the handle body, at least half of the thread remains. This thread will be enough for another locking screw. I remove the remains of the locking screw. This is what the thread on the handle body looks like for the cartridge rod. And now with another locking screw. I run the thread, the screw goes tightly along the thread, nevertheless I screw it in, but it unscrews quite easily, after which the thread on the handle looks pretty good. These handles are sold in the plumbing departments of the store. That instead of a screw, you can put a 5mm bolt, and if you do not have another locking screw, then this screw will suit you temporarily. Such screws are sold in such stores for car parts, and also in specialized stores. There are also such door handles. From there you can unscrew, of course, if you have it. Old spare handles. When the old screw shot out, this is the gap between the cartridge rod and the handle. If you don't have this screw, how to securely fasten the handle? It pops out easily. Not here, you drilled it out. But there is an easier way to fasten the cartridge rod and the handle. The cap doesn't fit here, so this one won't work for us. Using an awl, I'll scratch out on the cartridge rod where I need to drill for the hole on the handle. And where we see, this is where it's advisable to drill a hole for the screw, but not everyone has an electric drill or screwdriver. We heat it up and pierce it. And do this several times, so as not to burn your fingers when heating. Pins, we press it in pliers, heat red hot. And so we will burn the plastic rod for the screw several times. Then we check how the screw is screwed into the plastic.
Так берете?
So that after installing the handle the screw goes in easily. Of course, it is best to drill through the cartridge rod with a drill. Select a screw so that the head goes through the first hole in the handle. The screw will fit in different lengths: 10, 12, 16, 19 millimeters. After screwing in the screw, the handle is held firmly and reliably. That's it. And it will not go anywhere. I insert the plug. And you can buy such a protective screen in plumbing departments of the store. Then how to change the cartridge? See below. So, unscrew the protective screen. Sometimes it is impossible to unscrew it by hand. It is burnt and does not unscrew. Do not tighten the plumbing wrench too much. Do not over-tighten. Otherwise the thread on the decorative knot will be over-tightened and it will be quite difficult to unscrew it. If you have about an hour of free time, pour some water here so that the thread on the decorative nut softens. Then it will be easier to unscrew it. This narrow strip with the thread needs to be soaked in water for about 30 minutes or even an hour, but plumbers, professionals will not wait, and they will unscrew it anyway. Water will penetrate under the thread, soften the rust and dirt, and then you will be able to unscrew it. If this did not help to unscrew the decorative nut, then take a file or a triangular file and make a cut on both sides on the upper part of the protective screens so that something like a knife can be inserted into these grooves. It is enough to move the protective screen at least a little, then it will be much easier to unscrew it. Approximately such grooves so that when scrolling the knife can hold in the grooves of the cut, and in case breakdowns of the protective screen, as well as cartridge mounting nuts, They can be purchased in plumbing departments like these. And also everything you need. Then you need to unscrew the cartridge mounting nut. All these nuts have different sizes for the key, sometimes 30, 32, 31.5, 29, 28. This nut is good, made of brass. But before you unscrew it, make a note on the nut with a marker. Draw a line there where the thread is screwed in, like this, so that when you screw it back in, you are guided by this line. This is the thickness of the brass nut, and sometimes you can find a stamped nut on the faucets. I loosened the thread with a key to the right and left, so that the corners on the nut do not bend. After which we unscrew it. This is how it looks.
Вот так она выглядит.
And similar nuts are stamped from such steel sheets with an approximate thickness of 0.5 to 0.7 millimeters. Nuts made of brass and stamped from steel sheets differ significantly in both quality and price. Due to the fact that the nut rusts, it is difficult to unscrew. Besides, they stick. When you unscrew, this place can be completely crushed. Like plasticine. These are the stamped nuts. If the thread bends in this place, you will not be able to screw it back in. So you will need to very carefully unscrew this nut. These nuts can be bought in the plumbing departments of the store. And here is this stamped steel nut, which I unscrewed with difficulty. Now I will clean it from rust with a flat screwdriver, as much as possible, and the thread is 70% rusty, and I remove the rust only for one thing, so that when I screw this nut back, so that it screws in easily, and not tightly, so that when screwing the cartridge with a nut you feel the tension, so as not to over-tighten and not bend the edges of the nut. I wipe the rust with a rag, which I tore off with a screwdriver. I check the thread on the nut for screwing into the body and for unscrewing, so that the nut screws in and out easily. So, the review with nuts is finished, and now we take out the old cartridge. There is a rubber band left in the faucet body. It needs to be removed. Before you go to the store for a new cartridge, take a photo of the area under the cartridge. Be sure to show the photo in the store to the seller. He will immediately understand what you need. But this cartridge completely fell apart when removed from the faucet body. I removed the remains of the cartridge from the body. I removed the remaining moisture from the seat under the cartridge. The seat under the cartridge is not smooth. There was a lot of scale that had eaten into the metal. With a flat screwdriver we do not press too hard and clean off all the scale, so that the platform is smooth. I show what the platform should be like. Here I am carefully, without scratching, and I did not press too hard, but carefully, little by little, like this, we remove all the plaque, so that everything is smooth here and clean. There is no scale here anymore. Then we run our finger along the area so that everything is smooth. I collect the old cartridge so that I can go to the plumbing store with it. I put it in a plastic bag so as not to stain my pockets. They explain the old cartridge to the store. We even take a broken one with us and go with it to the market or to the store. They have different diameters, 25, 30 or 40 millimeters. This is how they differ. It is imperative to apply the old cartridge to the new one to compare to protrusions, as well as to holes in the saddle. They can be different in diameter. They have have a certain size. Here they are inserted here, and they do not always go here. If the hole is small, and the two protrusions on the cartridge are larger, then they will not go into the two holes on the body. I have already encountered such. I took a knife and each protrusion was cut in a circle. The rubber band needs to be taken out. This is how I cut it in a circle until the diameter of these protrusions decreased. Without this rubber band, you can scratch the edges for the rubber band, but not much. Then these places were cleaned of small debris and the rubber band was cleaned. And we put it in its place. The protrusions on the cartridge became narrower. Do not focus too much on the picture with the rubber band. Each company has different ones, but they fit all taps. The cartridge is not always immediately inserted into its place. And why did you not insert these grooves evenly? Did not go all the way into these two holes. It seemed to fit. But when you start to tighten, you see what the distance to the black strip is. And you see this. The distance means that you inserted the cartridge incorrectly. You see, there are more threads. You see this line. Take the key and tighten it. You don't need to tighten it too much. Just a little force by hand. You don't need to apply much force. Approximately. You see where the marker was. And here's another line. Here it is, black. Now that's right, that's it. It's back in place. Just like it was. The locking screw won't work like that. You need to unscrew it like this so that nothing gets caught. Clean the threads with something so that the threads are smooth. Like a pin or another sharp tool. The threads without a cartridge should be easily tightened by hand. When installing the cartridge, hold the faucet body. Often when tightening the nut, the body rotates freely due to the faucet fastening being loose. Open the hot and cold water supply and go check the faucet. You must definitely inspect so that water doesn't leak anywhere around the nut. Everything is fine at the moment. Then tighten the reflector ring. Then put the handle on the cartridge stem and use a hex key. Tighten the locking screw. Take this ring, tighten it. Then put the handle on the tap. Like this, insert the Allen key there and tighten it. Insert the plug. And that's it. And all taps are essentially the same. They only differ in the spouts. And that's it. The tap repair is complete. Subscribe and like. Goodbye.